What's up, He-Man fans? It's the Emerald Enthusiast, the man whose ring runs on fanboy energy, here with a look at the Mattel Masters of the Universe Revelation Masterverse figures of Andra and Teela. It's been a while since I took a look at any Motu figure, so I decided to give you this double review on my YouTube channel today. So let's go ahead and take a look at the package details now. The tops of the packages say Masterverse, and each has a partial window. On the bottom of each package, we get some product information. The sides of the package say Teela, Heroic Warrior Goddess, and Andra, Heroic Officer of Eternos. The opposite sides of the packaging features attractive artwork of the respective characters. One small criticism is that I wish Andra's face were visible. The back bottoms feature headshots of some of the other figures available in the Masterverse line. We're treated to some very dynamic artwork of each character on the back tops of each package. Here's a brief bio of Andra. If you'd like to read this, go ahead and pause the video and do so now. And here is Teela's bio. Once again, if you'd like to read this, go ahead and pause the video and do so now. Here are the figures as seen through the front windows of the packages. Each one is centered well with the accessories off to the side. My only criticisms of each one is that Teela is set a little low in her package, so you can't see her feet very well. And Andra has one of her arms cocked behind her, so that's not very visible either. But with all that being said, now I think it's time to bust these figures out of the package and see what's inside. Here are the figures free of the outer packaging, but still in the inner plastic, and each one comes with this cardboard tray with a rock wall design. And here we see Teela and Andra out of the package and ready to rumble. Each one of these figures has a superb amount of detail, but I do have minor criticisms of each one. So let's go ahead and get a closer look at the loose details of these figures now. As you can see, Andra comes with quite a few accessories. Here is my least favorite accessory, and that is this cloak. It is screen accurate, but if you saw my review of Skelligod, I talked about this type of material on the capes and cloaks, and I just don't like this gauzy type of material. It just looks cheap, and it doesn't look like it goes with this line at all because so many aspects of this line are so well executed. But let me go ahead and put the cloak on her so you can see what it looks like. So here is the figure with the cloak on, and I will give credit where it's due. It does hang pretty well, and it does stay on the figure. So those are two positive aspects about this. However, in addition to the look of the material, as you can see, you can't really get it to fit well on her head because she has her hair pulled back, and of course that is harder plastic, so you can't really get this pulled fully down. However, she does have another accessory, and that is this respirator mask, and you can change this head sculpt out. So let me go ahead and do that now. As you can see, the hood part of the cloak sits a little bit better on this alternate head sculpt. So if this is your head sculpt of choice, it does fit a little bit better with the cloak, but my preference is to have this head sculpt on the figure, so my plan is to just store this cloak. She comes with two sets of alternate hands. One set is a gripping set of hands, and I do like the paint on all of these. The overall sculpting looks really good. And of course, each one has this hinged peg. So these are pretty tight. Here's a look at the relaxed hands. And later on in the video, I will take the fists off of the figure and put each set of these on the figure. So let me talk about my favorite accessory here, and that is this Energy Blast accessory. I really like the sculpting here. I like this translucent plastic. And this just ports right here into her gauntlet blaster. And as you can see, this looks really cool. They really captured the moment of energy being expelled from the weapon, so I certainly appreciate that. Here's a shot of Teela with her accessories. The alternate hands are very basic. She gets one relaxed hand and one extra gripping hand. Remember, in the series, she had that changing weapon, so we get a hilt and a sword, and I certainly like the way that looks. Good paint applications on that. And I guess you call this a staff. Not exactly sure, but nonetheless, I like how this has been molded. I like the sculpting here on the end. And again, good paint applications, nice and tight. So she has this loop in the back, and you can just kind of fit the hilt in. Takes a little bit of elbow grease, but you can fit that in like that, and that looks pretty good. And if you're wondering, you can get the other weapons in that loop if you'd like, but they do look silly. So here's a look at the lower bodies of the figures, and there's a lot to like here. Good paint applications, good molding for each one, although I do have a criticism about Teela here. But I do like the sculpting on the boots of each figure here. The armored parts work very well. Overall, I like the texturing too, especially on Teela's boots. So both of these look really good all the way around. You may take issue with the way that the joints look back here because those don't really match the coloring of the rest of the outfits. But nonetheless, that's not something that bothers me too much. So Teela has one shortcoming that Andra has to a degree, but it's not nearly as problematic. So here's a quick look at the lower body articulation. There's good movement here at the ankle, including pivoting. There's a swivel here at the mid-calf. Double jointed knees. You can get her leg to go up that far. There's a quadricep swivel. And overall, the range of motion with the hip is pretty good. The little skirt part hinders it just a bit, as you can see, but you can get her to step back. But Teela has a much greater issue in this area. She has the standard Motu Masterverse articulation. You can see the movement there at the ankle, swiveling at the top of the boot, and double jointed knees. But when it comes to the hip area, that's where we have the issue. So with Teela, due to this skirt part of her outfit, this creates a problem with hip articulation. Now, Mattel tried their best here. You can see the slit on this side, and there's slits on each side of this pouch. However, when you try to move the leg forward, you can feel the pressure between this section and the leg. Now, you can get her to kick out to the side pretty well, and I don't feel like there's too much risk there. But let me see if I can pick up the sound here. You can hear that pressure between this part and this part if you try to move her leg too far forward. So be careful if you decide to pose her doing something like kicking forward. I can't get her to step back at all with that leg. I can get her to step back a little bit with this leg. She does have the quadricep swivel, so I do appreciate that. But again, there are some articulation limitations due to the skirt area. Here's a close-up of Andra's torso, and I really like the texturing here. As you can see, this belt part is a separate piece, so you can move that up and down. Now, this sash part is not. It is molded onto the upper torso. I don't like the visibility here of the stamp. Far too prominent for my taste. But this features a lot of good sculpting. As you can see, there's lots of little parts. You can even see like the little snaps on the pouches. That's just really impressive. In terms of articulation, she has lower waist pivoting here. You can see that works well. Swiveling at the upper part of the torso. You can get her to rock back this far, and you can get her to crunch forward that far. So no real complaints with the articulation. Let's have a look at Teela's torso now, and I really appreciate the sculpting on this chest plate. It has these different segmented section. It has like that buckle there. These little yellow dots that represent bolts. Yeah, that looks really good. And it looks like something that has been put on the torso. It's not just a perfunctory effort with paint. However, as good as it looks, it does hinder the articulation. You can only get her to crunch forward that far. The swivel does work side to side well as the pivoting on the lower part of the torso. But then this piece pushes against the loop back here. So again, the articulation is limited. Let's take a look at Teela's arms, and these have been produced very well. I like the musculature here, good skin tone. I like the way the band has been sculpted on it. You know, this is a buffer Teela in Revelation than we saw in the original Filmation series, and I think that works well. In terms of articulation, she has this hinge at the elbow, swiveling here at the wrist. You can get her arm to move around 360 degrees. You can raise the shoulder up this far from the side, so I feel like that could be a little bit better. Swiveling at the biceps, likewise on this arm. And if you want to do like a full wingspan pose, you can get her arms to move outward and back that far. Let's have a look at the alternate hands. These alternate hands will help you get her into a good-looking pose with the staff. Let's have a look at Andra's arms now. I like the sculpting. The skin tone looks good. I like the size. Unfortunately, I have a little extra paint on the biceps on mine. Hopefully I can get that off eventually. Really like the way the blaster is sculpted. I like the paint application. I think the gloves look good. I'm going to put the alternate hands on in just a minute. But yes, overall, really quality work on Andra's arms. The articulation on the arms is acceptable, but it's certainly not perfect. You can see the bicep swivel works well, as does the hinge at the elbow. You can get her arm to go up that far. But unfortunately, these sleeves really hinder the shoulder when you try to raise her arm over her head. You can't get 360 degrees of rotation on this. You can rock it back and move it forward like that. And you can get it to go pretty far out to the side. But again, you can only get it to go so far upward. And that is the case on both sides. One saving grace for the shoulders is that you can get her in a good wingspan pose. Now let's take a look at the alternate sets of hands. Here are the open palm hands. And here's Andra with the gripping hands. And if you're wondering if you can get Teela's weaponry in Andra's hands, here's a look at Andra with the staff. Let's have a look at Andra's head sculpt now, and there's a lot of things that have been executed well here. I think the skin tone looks good. The paint applications are done well, but she looks a little older than I think she should, and I'm not exactly sure what to attribute that to. Now, the hair looks really good. The texturing is just magnificent here. I think that is on target. And I think when you look at her in profile, the age is a little bit more accurate. But when you look at her straight on, she just comes off as older than I think she should. In terms of articulation, the head moves freely side to side. You can't get her to look up very well, but you can get her to look down considerably. And there's a little bit of head tilting. So I'm very thankful for the inclusion of this alternate head sculpt with the respirator mask. There's lots of magnificent sculpting here, as you can see, like the breathing tube around this the different sections of the mask. All of this looks really good. Just magnificent sculpting. Even the back here. I mean, it does look like metal, even though it's obviously plastic, but I do have one problem with this. So I can only get minimal articulation out of this head sculpt, and I've taken it off and put it back on several times, and it just doesn't want to stay when I try to move it. I hope this is an anomaly with my figure, and if you get one of these, that you don't have the same problem. Let's have a look at Teela's head sculpt now. And I really liked this new hairstyle in the series. It was unique, and I think it fit the character very well, and that has been represented here with this head sculpt. I think the skin tone looks good. The lips are colored well. Again, the hair has been sculpted well. You can see the individual strands here. The ears look good. The back of the head looks good. So I'm thankful for what we got here. Now, you must exercise caution when articulating her head. There is full range of motion, side to side and up and down, but be careful with the collar and the very edge of her hair. You don't want to articulate the head haphazardly and possibly chip one of those areas. I certainly hope you have enjoyed this review. If so, please like, subscribe, and tell a friend to do the same. Stay tuned for some articulation shots, and also remember to catch me on the Multiverse Musings vidcast, available right here on YouTube. And I'll be back with more action figure-related content soon. But until we meet again, this has been the Emerald Enthusiast, and thanks for watching.